Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Jolie Teveno. I'm the Executive Director of the Japan America Society of Alabama, and I'm here with Honorary Consul General of Japan, Mr. Mark Jackson. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today. We're looking forward to talking to you about diplomacy and the Japan-Alabama relationship.
Jolie, it's always a pleasure to support your efforts with JASA, and thank you for supporting my efforts on behalf of Japan.
Thank you. Well, it's such a pleasure to have you. Can you tell us a little bit about what an Honorary Consul General does?
If you think about a country, that's in this case Japan, Japan is heavily invested in Alabama on many areas: business, commerce, education, culture. They have a consul, an ambassador in Washington, D.C. that's responsible for all of those areas across the United States. They also have a consul general in Atlanta who's responsible for the Southeast. However, they look for someone who can represent their interests in those spaces in a certain state. In this case, in my case, Alabama. So I represent all of Japan's interests to the state of Alabama. I don't represent Alabama's interests to Japan. I represent Japan's interest to Alabama. Some people would say, so you're Japan's ambassador to Alabama. In a sense, by definition, yes, but being honorary means that I am a citizen of Alabama that has been picked to represent their interests to the state of Alabama.
Thank you very much. So it's close to what we do with the Japan America Society, representing Alabama to Japan. And so
that's correct.
There are many cases that you'll see Mark Jackson and JASA working closely together on certain events and in those two positions. So thank you. So can you talk a little bit about what Japan's presence in Alabama looks like? You mentioned business and culture.
Across all of those areas, Japan is not lacking at all. There are some countries in Alabama that may have a diaspora, a population, but Japan has, for many years, ever since, let's see, the Sony tape factories came into Dothan in the 70s, I believe it was, to JVC coming into Tuscaloosa County not long after that. Japan has recognized that Alabama is fertile soil. You've got a lot of economics here. You have about 140 Japanese owned and affiliated companies here in Alabama. Owned being true Japanese owned companies like Honda and Daiichi and Toray, Daikin. Affiliated companies like Protective Life, who's a part of Daiichi, companies who actually are suppliers to the Japanese firms. Pharmavite being an affiliate of a Japanese pharmaceutical company. So 170, and when you think about that from an economic perspective, the impact on Alabama from a workforce perspective is huge. In fact, one study that I did a few years ago shows something very simple. And that is, if you take the economic impact that is represented by the payrolls of those 170 companies, if you took that away from our economy, you couldn't fund the state education budget. And that's just one simple aspect to that. But when you think about the educational partnerships that exist between Talladega College, Auburn University, University of Montevallo, University of West Alabama, UAH, all across the state from a higher education perspective, they have partnerships with Japanese universities that includes teacher transfers back and forth, as well as student transfers back and forth. You can move that into high school and elementary school through our Sister Cities program that we have. There are student exchanges, there are pen pal exchanges, e-pal exchanges now, pen pal when I was a kid. But there is something going on across the entire spectrum. JASA has been very good at cultivating and growing those types of relationships from a cultural perspective through its support of the cherry blossom festivals, especially the one here in Birmingham that has been going for so many years. I remember going to the cherry blossom festival at the Japanese gardens when I was just a small child. It's been an honor to work with you and the others at JASA to have the cherry blossom festival in the garden, which is a beautiful garden here. Once again, a large aspect of Japan in Alabama.
Yes, thank you. And I think that the Cherry Blossom Festival this year, is in a virtual capacity, but hopefully we'll be able to go back to the Birmingham Botanical Gardens again next year. But in the meantime, they have plenty of videos up on their website that you're all able to tour anytime. And if you can go in a socially distanced fashion out to the local gardens or Japanese gardens during cherry blossom season, we'd certainly urge you to do so. They're very beautiful, and there are several other Japanese gardens across the state if you're not in Birmingham as well. Mark, I know you have experience working up in Huntsville and then down in Mobile with both of the Japanese gardens there. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, both of those are phenomenal. They were personal efforts. The one in Mobile was started by a fellow named Charles Wood, and Mr. Wood actually lived to be way into his 90s. And daily was out there moving rocks and cutting hedges. That it was a plot of land that's really in downtown Mobile that he owned. He was able to acquire, and because of his love for Japan, which he never really completely explained to me, but he created this garden. It had koi ponds. I mean, it's beautiful. He has since passed away the last few years. However, his family and others who love that garden continue to make it grow. There is a Japanese garden in Huntsville, which is near UAH, which is part of their botanical gardens, which is beautiful. That is a public-private partnership. However, private partnership on Montesano is the North Alabama Japanese Garden that was dreamed up and worked on and headed by a guy. And it has been Robert Black. It's been a labor of love. Robert took a plot of land that was basically his backyard that was next to Montesano State Park. And it's less than 3 acres. And when I got involved, it had fallen into disrepair due to Robert's health. Robert's health started to get better. And as his health started to get better, the garden started growing again, because you had volunteers that came. Huntsville being an extremely international city, and UAH being involved with a Japan club with Japanese students that I mentioned earlier. They all came together with Robert and others to rebuild this garden. Now, many years ago, during my first trip to Japan, I visited one of Birmingham's sister cities, Hitachi, and I was taken out into the inland. Hitachi's right on the water, to a garden, a shrine, and called Oiwa Shrine. And I walked into this place that had these trees that were thousands of years old, these trails that were beautiful on the side of a mountain. And it was just peaceful. And in fact, it has become one of my most favorite places in the entire world. When I go to Japan, I always go there. I had a chance to climb the mountain, which was a pretty great feat for me. But what I saw in Montesano, the garden that Robert Black has produced, reminds me so much of that peace that you experience in Oiwa Shrine. And that is mirrored in the fact that there is actually a rock from Oiwa Shrine in the garden, in the North Alabama Japanese Garden, and there's also a North Alabama Japanese Garden rock that is in Oiwa Shrine now. So they share spirits together. It's a wonderful thing what has gone on across the state about these gardens, and it actually kind of makes a Japan trail. If you want to start in Huntsville and come through Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, down to Mobile, You can be all Japanese and from snow to sunshine.
That is a beautiful exchange. I've been to Oiwa Jinja as well in our outside of our sister city, Birmingham and Hitachi, and it is quite beautiful. I didn't know that about the rock exchange. It is certainly a deep-rooted connection that we have on these many different levels, and I'm sure there are many stories about these small, very personal connections between Alabama and Japan. So you, over the past couple of years, what are some of your favorite things that you've seen in these connections, and maybe some of the events or exchanges that you've been a part of? What are your favorite things with the Alabama-Japan relationship?
We can go back to 2015, which was a year after I received my appointment as Honorary Consul General. We had been picked to be the site for the 2015 Southeast U.S. Japan Conference, the SUS Japan Conference. We had a wonderful mayor, Mayor Bell, who got behind, through all of his support of City Hall and the international community behind that. And we had over 400 delegates to that conference. It was a chance to show off Birmingham, to show off Alabama to Japan. As a result of that, there has been a lot of international investment that has come to Alabama after that. In fact, in 2020, I believe that there was $1.6 billion worth of Japanese investment into the state of Alabama. And in a normal year, that's good. But in 2020, the worst economic year probably in the history of the United States, including the Depression, $1.6 billion of Japanese investment. It's a great testimony to Japan. It's a great testimony to your leadership, great testimony to the ambassadors, a great testimony to the governor, and a great testimony to the work of Greg Canfield, our Secretary of Commerce, who has always been right there at the beck and call of myself and you and others to make sure that Japanese feels at home and Japan companies have a place here in Alabama. But visiting Japan has been a wonderful thing. Having Japan visit Alabama, to me, is even better when they get a chance to come to my home state. I recall a few years ago when I was on the board of Rickwood Field. At the time, Birmingham was the home of the oldest baseball park in the world, Rickwood Field, and the newest baseball park in the world, Regions Field. Regions is no longer the newest, but Rickwood is still the oldest. But one of the board members who had been a friend of Birmingham for many years, board member of Hitachi Corporation, came over and we took him to the park. And it was closed, but we managed to get a bat, get a ball, and get about 5 guys. I threw him a pitch. Amazingly, he ran the bases with a home run. Well, now, it was not the most wonderful hit, but the fact was, a board member of Hitachi Corporation hit a home run in the world's oldest baseball park, which is right in the middle of his city's sister city, Birmingham. So wonderful exchange to make. It's something that I remember well, and it's something that Hachoji-san remembers extremely well. That was just that friendship that Sister Cities is based on.
That's amazing. What an incredible experience, an incredible story to tell. And it's so much better when you can share those things together as well. That's kind of the beauty of those grassroots exchanges, for sure.
We threw him 2 pitches. He hit it twice. I have one of those balls that he signed. He has the one that I signed in Japan. Just cool.
That is so great. It's wonderful. So what advice do you have for someone who's interested in Japan and wants to learn more about Japan and be more engaged from right here in Alabama?
Well, it's not difficult to find information now because Japan is so prolific through all the spectrums of Alabama. If you think about Hoover, Alabama, Hoover is probably one of the most international cities I've ever seen. There's 52 languages, Japanese being one of those, spoken within their school system. So you don't have to go far to see Japan. Southwest Alabama, Thomasville has a nice Japanese population that works at that's connected with the AMS Calvert factory. So all across Alabama, there is Japan. What advice would I have for somebody that came up and said, how do I find out and get involved in things? Well, number one, there's a wonderful society called the Japan American Society of Alabama that has its thumb on all that entire gamut, that entire spectrum between Japan and Alabama. It depends on what someone would want to get involved in. If they want to get involved in hosting a student like we did for a year through a Sister Cities program and the exchange programs that they represent, that's easy. And what a wonderful experience that was for us and our boys as they were growing up. Hirota was our exchange student. We still keep in touch with Hirota. But also, if you want to get involved with the Sakura festivals, with the with some of the programs that JASA puts together, it's just a simple Google search on Japan in Alabama, and there it is. It's an open book and a huge opportunity for people to get involved.
So we come across a lot of people who are very interested in traveling to Japan, and obviously now is not very much the time for travel, but what advice would you have for people who want to make those journeys and get over to Japan, whether it be through business exchange or cultural exchange? Where would you begin?
Let's start by saying this is not a normal time. Pre-COVID and post-COVID, which I believe is coming very soon. My answer is go. Just go. Delta is ready when you are. And you can end up getting on an airplane in Birmingham, connect through Atlanta, connect through Detroit, and within 15 hours, you're touching down in Tokyo. However, do your research before you go. Whatever you're interested in, if you're interested in business, in commercial exchange, look up SEUS Japan. Find out when the next Southeast US Japan conference will be in Tokyo. Work with the Department of Commerce here in Alabama to get an invitation and go. There's a lot of relationships that have been built around that SEUS Japan conference. If you're interested in the cultural aspects, sightseeing aspects, certainly you can go online and look at programs that are on YouTube and make a really, really nice self-guided tour. However, with the sister cities that exist throughout Alabama and Japan, Birmingham has two, Montevallo has one, Tuscaloosa has one. Reach out to those cities, to those administrators of those programs, and let them tell you about what those cities and their cities have in common, the programs that they have. And they will actually reach out to the people that they know in those cities and open the doors for you to have a very nice reception. And it's one thing to have your self-guided tour, but when in Rome, hire a Roman. When in Tokyo, hire a Japanese. So with all the opportunities that exist between Japan and Alabama, I would like to congratulate you on what you do at JASA in making sure that all of those opportunities are forefront. If anyone wants to learn more, go to JASA's website, japanalabama.com. Pay close attention to the events. Although for this year, a lot have been virtual, pay attention to the ones that are coming open. JASA does a wonderful job in supporting Alabama and the Japanese relationship. Study that. It's not a hard study, and get involved. And you can have a lot of fun learning about Japan right here from your living room in Alabama. Thank you Totally, thank you so much. And once again, thank you for the support that you personally and JASA gives me in my position with Japan. And I'll always be here to support whatever you need from me. Thank you very much. Arigato gozaimasu.
Domo arigatou gozaimasu. Mark-san, thank you so much. And we appreciate your support and the relationship between the Consul General of Japan and the JASA are very important for the US-Japan relationship as a whole. And so we're so grateful to have you, and so glad that you could talk to our viewers today and be a part of our 2021 virtual Cherry Blossom Festival.
Wonderful. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.